Okay. For those on the call, we will be starting shortly, just getting PowerPoint set up here. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session on how YamaPay creates a new category of proactive finance. My name is Ash Sadiq. I'm the founder of the company, and we are going to share with you essentially our thought process. How did we get here, and why we do believe that this is a new category of financial applications. And it's very interesting how we got to where we are today. So I'll go ahead and start the session. Definitely make use of the tools available here to send your questions in, and I'll try to take as many of these questions as I go along as well. So stepping back into how this idea came upon, I'll go to the first slide. I think the very first thing that I started reflecting on, when you saw a lot of people online talking about how they make use of a lot of the new credit cards and the debit cards, a lot of the cashback offers, the miles programs, the points, and I started essentially thinking and looking at some of these families. I mean, if you look at some of the websites out there, they basically show you a family that kept using the same card for years and years and years until they accumulated enough points, and then they were able to go around the world at zero cost, totally leveraging those miles that they have accumulated. But then I started thinking that most of us don't really have the time to do any of that, and that told me that not just in this area, but in a lot of other areas, there's a lot of money that is left in the system, and we just don't have a way of capturing these dollars unless we have nothing else to do, and all we do is keep monitoring what we're doing with cards like that, and keep looking at how much we end up gathering. So I said essentially there must be a better way of doing this, and we need to expect a lot more from the technology that exists already. I worked in high tech most of my life. had an earlier career at Charles Schwab and management consulting, but it's high tech that got me thinking, you know, the technology exists, why is this technology not being used? So that was the very initial thought, and the very first question is, how do you actually build tools that will actually do this for all of us? And then when you look at how complex this becomes, not, you know, most people are not walking around with one card. I know some people do, but most people are walking around with a lot more cards. And there are a lot of cashbacks and miles and points programs across the spectrum, and more of those keep coming in across our eyes every single day. So then the question then becomes, how can you manage all of this without having enough mental power, without having enough of these tools available today? And that's really where we start to, you know, continue to think, how can we deliver this to the marketplace? And then another idea came up, and then the idea then becomes more around, how can we make sure that we're getting the highest value for our dollars? So if we spend $1 and we can get more cash back for it, more miles for it, more points for it, these are essentially marketing dollars that these companies are trying to use to essentially get us to take action and purchase an item that they are selling and engage with their products and services. So when we come back to this concept from quality management, this concept of highest and best use, what is the value that I'm getting on the dollar that I'm spending, and how can you help me save more of it, so when I keep more of it, I can achieve more of my dreams. If I can save 15, 20% or more on the dollars that I'm spending, hopefully I will have a lot more that I can keep. Because when you think about the bigger issue is most of us here in the U.S., we are one car breakdown away from bankruptcy. Most of us don't even have $500 to fix a broken car, if the fix is that simple. So that essentially means a lot of people need help saving money in every way possible. And that's why at YamaPay, we actually want to honor work. We want to honor work and its rewards. We want to help people keep more of the money that they work so hard. We want to help them keep this money that they work so hard to earn. And as a result, of course, they can achieve more and see more of their dreams come true, especially when we see the levels that we can get to once we take care of that very first level, very first stage of helping people save more of their money. So then the question starts to get even bigger when we take a look at how financial services companies and retailers, I mean, let's not forget about how much money retailers are spending, but financial services companies are spending at least $88 billion a year to try to get your attention and my attention and look at their products and services. Now, when you look on the back end of it, when you look at the ROI for these companies, the ROI is not that high, because even with $88 billion spent annually on marketing, the return is very small. Why? And I'll show you why. So the reason why this is going on is because there is a lack of a mindset that is focused on the customer. And there is also a very high level of a lack of trust between us as consumers and financial services providers. And because of that lack of trust, they are shooting in the dark with a lot of their offers. They keep sending us messages. They keep putting ads on TV, ads in magazines, and everywhere you look, there is money that is spent on marketing and advertising, but a lot of that money is spent on messages and on tools that are driven from a mindset that is actually sitting inside the bank or actually sitting inside the retailer corporation. And what we need to have is a mindset that's a whole lot more focused on how can you give this individual that is going to make use of these tools the highest and best use of their dollars. So that is essentially the big divide between where these companies are at and where we are at. And then when you start looking at what's happening across the spectrum of companies like Uber, Diamo, Airbnb, when we look at Netflix, and a lot of other companies, we find that a lot of these companies are actually making use of the trust-building technologies to create a lot of these services, to the point that a lot of these services start to blend into the environment and they don't stare us in the face. And we'll see this concept coming to light in the examples that we'll start looking at now. When we look at the experience of, taking a cab, now it's become a joyful cab ride in the sense that you don't have to think about, do I have enough cash? Do I have a card to pay it? Does the guy have a machine to accept payment? All these questions with an Uber ride or a Lyft ride or a similar experience, the payment experience has now essentially been relegated to the background, and all you're left to do is sit and enjoy the ride. Maybe you're able to do something else, spend time on social media, connect with family and friends, but you're no longer thinking about the financial transaction. The same thing is happening when you go out and you're trying to put a family picnic together and you go buy what you need. A lot of that experience is really driven by what do you want to do once you get there, and again, whether you went to spend money in the store or pick things up, you got a whole lot more focus on that eventual experience that you want to have. And the same thing applies across a number of other experiences. When we think about people getting excited about walking into the new home, a lot of us are thinking a lot more about that experience and nothing else. So we start then thinking, how can, even when we think about the graduation ceremony, again, we're looking at that end outcome that we are trying to achieve, and we're trying to relegate the financial services experience to the back end. So what do we learn from the shared economy? We learn that the trust index continues to get better. The more we use those applications, the more we use those services, the higher the level of trust is between us and the people that are providing those services. And sometimes, like in the case of Airbnb, the trust is being built across the members of that transaction, the host, the guest. That trust factor is building every time people are using those services. So we started looking at a lot of these ideas as we started thinking about financial services and what we can expect. And we came back to this whole issue of mindset and this whole issue of trust. And I'll give you an example of why financial services industry keeps shooting in the dark. This is a real-life example from LendingTree. When I signed up with LendingTree, I think maybe at that time they looked at my credit report, they perhaps looked at some financial products I have, and then what I can tell is that they took that snapshot in time and then they kept sending me messages via email almost every single day. But then the messages became a lot more irrelevant over time because the data points that they are using in the email, like in this case they're talking about credit card debt. As the debt started going down, the email I kept getting from them kept having the same exact figure, which told me they are shooting in the dark in the sense that the data is not live and they're not proactively updating their information, and the information that keeps coming my way remains static, remains irrelevant. Now, let's take a look at the potential for what I mean by proactive finance. This is our vision when we have a high level of trust between the customer and YamaPay, and we see ourselves as a terrific intermediary between financial services industry, between retailers, where the trust factor gets elevated, and as we increase that trust factor between us and the user is actually able to tell us about an existing home loan that they have. And then we take this information, we sit in the background, we keep looking for opportunities where we can actually come back and wow this customer. That's why we call it Delight Me Services. We want to sit in the background, look at the parameters of this loan, and if we see this customer's credit profile changing, we see their income changing, and we can use this data to uncover a much better loan for them that is going to free up money on a monthly basis from a cash flow standpoint. We're going to be able to reduce their mortgage payment, and we're going to reduce their interest rate on the loan. That is a surprise and a delightful surprise for that customer. And you can imagine us then sending that customer a notification on their phone screen that says, hey, by the way, we have just found a new home refinance offer that is going to be amazing for you. And they double click on that notification, they open the screen, they can see their current loan on the left-hand side, how long the life of that loan is, what is the monthly payment, what the interest rate is, and then on the right-hand side we show them apples-to-apples comparison. We'll show them why this is a much better deal for them, and the fact that we're freeing up $500 a month for them, that they can use these dollars to invest in other tools, to do something else with the money, to go get a car, essentially really giving them an opportunity to go beyond what they are using financially. And that is essentially what we mean by Delight Me services, the fact that you actually use the data that you have about that customer, you raise the number of data elements that that customer allows you to use, because again, a lot of the time the customer, because they see on the other end a high level of self-interest where the banker is only thinking about how they can maximize their profits, and they don't share information. They shut the caller down or they delete the email. And what we want to do here is say there's so much in the technology that once we actually unlock that potential, and especially also come back and unlock the trust factor, we have a much, much, much better scenario for everybody involved. And then a lot of people, listening in are probably starting to imagine what is the potential for these notifications, these on-screen notifications across the spectrum of products, whether we are looking at a home loan refinance or a new home loan or a car loan or car insurance or home insurance. Once we have that level of trust in place and we can actually take the data points from an existing product and every single day in the background do the data crunching, do the cross-referencing, and then come back and say, hey, you may want to look at this. You don't have to take us up on our offer every single time, but the potential for savings is mind-boggling, especially when you have the data that you're going to use to make these comparisons. And then come back and show the apples-to-apples opportunities for that customer. So then we'll come back and ask ourselves, what have we been seeing so far from a lot of the financial offers? A lot of banks are telling us, for example, about rounding up and saving some pennies on some of our transactions. Or they go out and they talk to retailers and they bring us some cashback deals. These are all fantastic, but I actually look at them as a value level of 1, because when you look deeper at it, we're only talking about pennies on the dollar, and very small number of pennies as well. So that's essentially what I'm calling the proactive finance index, because we're starting to look at how much proactive finance is happening is going to be translated into the offers and how much money is being saved for that American citizen. If we were to look at opportunities, companies, for example, like Ebates, where you feel like you're getting 5%, 10%, you start to actually see savings in the size of single or double-digit dollars on items that you're buying. And you do feel genuinely that there are some money that's being saved. But again, we're looking at maybe $1, $2, $5, still very minimal level, but you know what? Let's just say that's cool. We're getting some money saved. But the third level is where we see the Delight Me services aspect coming in, the opportunity for us to use the trust factor coming in, and really elevating the level of savings that we could be looking at on an annual basis. And that picture is going to start getting very interesting when we look at what is the typical spend if we take someone who's making $100,000 a year and you look at where those $100,000 are being spent. Let's say on average that person takes 15% of their money and they put it on the 401k. If they're running their own business, maybe they have an IRA. But at the very end of the day, that's the daily noise you're seeing on Bloomberg, on CNBC, anywhere else where money is being talked about. They are focusing on the stock market. And in my mind, that is a very small percentage of our annual income level, and where we're perhaps saving some dollars in the 401k account, which we absolutely should, and we should really invest for the long term. But then when you look at the 85% that's remaining, that essentially goes back to all the way from as small as a cup of coffee that you buy, all the way to a home purchase, all the way to a car purchase, home insurance, car insurance, big ticket items, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. And the savings on those are incredibly high. Problem is, most of us, because of the complexity in the system, we don't even look there again. When we buy the car, we rarely go back and look at that car loan. When we buy the house, we rarely go back and look at the house and the interest rate that we got for that house, how much interest we're paying for that loan. And when our financial picture improves, again, we don't realize that a lot of these products are given to us, and the interest rate that we are given is dependent on the our financial picture at that moment. And if we don't go back and optimize, when things get better for us, we need to go back and optimize. And again, we don't go back and look, and a lot of the financial service providers don't go back and look. And if they do come and approach us, they will very much like what I showed you. Most of the time, they are going to be shooting in the dark because they are depending on one piece of information, and they don't have the rest of the data points and the information, so they can do a terrific way of cross-referencing and then come back and send you that amazing on-screen notification telling you that there's a much better loan now for that car or a much better loan now for that house. So that's really where we're stepping in, and definitely we're going to take this one step at a time. When you take a look at our objective here is we're really start looking at these dreams. I was listening to someone on the Undercover Boss show, and there was a guy on the show who was talking about how as a family they only had one car, and when his boss told him he's going to give him some money to buy a second car for the family, this guy started tearing up. Some of the things we have are amazing gifts for somebody else, amazing and high-level dreams for somebody else. And for us, for some people, going to college is a dream. Having an amazing family gathering is a dream. Buying a second car or a first car is a dream. Buying a house is a dream. And that's really where we're really stepping into that light. We want to be able to achieve some of these amazing moments for people. And that's why I think proactive finance, there's a lot that can happen across those life events, because that's really where, you know, much bigger dollar amounts are available for savings, and helping people understand how they can benefit from such a mindset, and then come back and talk about why trust is important and why the resulting benefits will be very, very high. Now, a lot of people listening in might say, hey, but a financial advisor does that. You know what? The data points and all the reference points that I'm talking about are even hard for a financial advisor to tackle on a daily basis, because a lot of them, they are very dynamic. The credit score is dynamic, income is dynamic, the amount of stuff you're buying is dynamic. So that financial picture keeps changing. And only the software, in my mind, it's only in the power of the technology when it's put to use that it can keep track of all these elements and keep cross-referencing and then delighting you with messages to your phone or to your inbox, letting you know what an amazing miracle exists in your own financial pocket once we put some of those things to use. So when you look at YamaPay as an example of proactive finance, we are engaging in our first release with what happens on a daily basis. We will make it possible for you to pay for items in the store inside the app itself. So the app itself becomes the point of sale system, and you don't have to use the physical card, you don't have to use cash, but the app itself, that's really where you're going to do your transactions. And we're doing this for a reason. As much as we understand your spending patterns, we will be able to come back and say, here are retail offers on those things that you buy most often, so you can actually continue to reap in the savings and the rewards, highly relevant rewards in this case, right? So these are personalized discounts on things that you buy. If there is a better card than the card you're using today, we will look across the cards you have, and again, not work in the dark, look across the interest rates that you have on the different cards, and then come back and say, hey, your FICO score is better today. You may want to save yourself some dollars by using a better credit card. And then we come back and give you also YamaPay points, so you feel like you're getting a triple play. You're selecting the best card to spend your money from, you're getting savings on products and services that you buy most often, and then we come back and reward you with YamaPay points as well. Then we start looking in the second release. That's when we start getting excited, because we're giving you the ability to pay your bills using a credit or a debit card and continue to really get the most out of these cards, get the most out of the points, the cashbacks, as well as the miles. And essentially, again, as we said in the beginning, you're now letting technology do a lot of that chase for you. And then you're also going to be able to send people money from the app itself. You're going to be able to start looking at better loans, better insurances with a higher level of trust and a higher level of engagement from you. Then we start looking at the third release, and the third release really takes a lot of that experience to the web, so that whenever you're shopping online, you can still make use of your YamaPay digital wallet. You see all the cards, you see the interest rates, you're making a choice on which card is best to use, you're making a choice which card has the lower interest rate, which card does actually have available dollars for you to use. You can do bill payment online. All of that is done in a beautifully delightful experience as well. And then you have the opportunity then to take those YamaPay points and get a gift card that you could, again, feel like your money is coming back to you. And that's why we're really coming back to this whole idea of highest and best use. As much as you can get value for the dollar you're spending, and then also as much as you can get back that the system is trying to give you, so that instead of spending money on marketing that doesn't pay off, they can come back and increase these rewards for you and these discounts for you. It's your money. You might as well get it back. So that's really what we're intending to do. And then you start looking at this chart and you start realizing what happens when you start thinking in that proactive finance mindset. You really start getting a whole lot more into the intersection of industries, the intersection of experiences. And Uber Ride is bringing the automotive industry, the financial industry, and the technology industries all in one place to create those experiences. So you can see the number of industries that we're touching in order for us to create Uber-like delightful experiences across the spectrum of transactions that you're doing on a daily basis. And we step in to help save you money. That is the biggest issue for all of us. As I said in the beginning, we are $500 away from a big issue when a car breaks down or you need money for an emergency. You know, all that doesn't come easy. We have to really go out and establish relationships across the industry with companies like Zillow, Equifax, FMTC, a big number of companies coming into this equation because they see the potential of savings and value that we would be able to create for you. So I'm going to try to move a little bit faster to show you from a competitive standpoint. There are a lot of companies in the space that are trying to provide financial services, payment services. I think when you come at it from an optimization and engagement standpoint, we're seeing ourselves as one of the very early companies that are really trying to do both of those. A lot of other companies are focusing more and more on the efficiency of the transaction or how fast it happens. I'm greedy. I want that transaction to have a very high value return for me. If I can bring back 15, 20, 30 cents on every dollar I'm spending, I want to make this happen for me and for everybody listening and for everybody out here in this country. And that's why we strongly believe in this concept of, use the information, use the technology to drive a lot of value. So then to summarize, we make a promise that if you do use YamaPay on a daily basis, the chances for you to save small dollars happen on a daily basis. The chances for you saving hundreds and thousands of dollars will happen across that year. When you optimize a loan, when you optimize an insurance, you're having a lot more money come in your pocket, your cash flow is better, and that's just the beginning for a life where you're able to, number one, save money on a daily basis, save on the small and the big ticket items, and then start learning more about how do I have financial independence and how do I eventually have my money working for me. That's sort of that rich dad, poor dad philosophy. We want to bring that thinking into the process so that people understand that we're not just thinking about today, we're thinking about the long term. We want you to think that way. We want to help you think that way so you end up really making the best use of every dollar that you earn. And then when it's time, you can enjoy it. You can enjoy it with family and friends, and you can get the most out of it. And that's why when you look at the very bottom, it says why we care. We believe in value and savings first. We believe in proactive finance technology can help us and should help us save more than we can ever do on our own. And I think that's probably all I have, and we can definitely take some questions from the audience. Let's see here. I want to give you guys a couple of minutes. Ask any questions you have on your mind or feedback. If you're not thinking that question yet, but one question could be, when is YamaPay going to be available? In the next few months, we're working furiously to make that first release available, and we want you to join this movement. I think it's a mission and a cause for us, and would love for you to join us on that mission and that cause. If you go to YamaPay.com and put your name and email address there, we'll make sure as soon as we go live, you get a notification to start leveraging this amazing potential technology. We can only see this getting better as we continue to collaborate with a lot of financial services companies and a lot of retailers. We really want to get the most out of data analytics and the trust factor. I mean, as much as people see the value of the platform and they see the benefits coming in back into their pocket and their lives, the more we will see the users giving us more and more access to data to serve them better and give them the products that are highly relevant for them that do actually put money back in their pocket. Fantastic. So I don't see a lot of questions coming in. I did see some positive feedback coming in from some of you. Very grateful to you. The slides will be available on the platform as well as the recording as well. I want to thank you for participating, and thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye, everyone.